Okay, so imagine like a virus that's so sneaky, it can basically hijack your own cells.
Yeah.
Right? And like it turns them into these little factories churning out copies of itself. And all the while, your immune system's left totally clueless.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the scary reality back in the early 1980s when AIDS first emerged.
Right.
It was terrifying. And today we're diving deep into the story of Françoise Barré-Sinoussi.
Oh, absolutely.
This scientist whose dedication, I mean, she helped us understand this crisis at its core. You know, we've compiled a bunch of information about her journey and not just focusing on like the big scientific breakthroughs, but also, you know, all the intense challenges she faced.
Right.
So in this deep dive, what we really want to uncover are the pivotal moments in the discovery of HIV. You know, the huge controversy that followed and just the lasting impact of Barré-Sinoussi's commitment to science.
I think what's really striking when you look at the early days of AIDS is just the sheer terror and the confusion. You know, it wasn't like we saw this gradual rise in a disease we already knew about.
Yeah.
It was, bam, a completely new syndrome, seemingly out of nowhere. And it was just devastating communities incredibly quickly.
Yeah.
And the lack of understanding just fueled so much fear.
Yeah.
The scientific community was under immense pressure to find some answers.
Absolutely. And it was into this kind of like a fog of uncertainty that Françoise Barré-Sinoussi stepped in.
Yeah.
So picture her in her Paris laboratory, already super focused on studying retroviruses. And retroviruses are really fascinating.
They are.
They're challenging because unlike a lot of other viruses, they can actually insert their genetic material into the DNA of the host cell.
Right.
So they essentially become like part of the cell's machinery.
Yeah, they basically hijack the cell's own operating system.
Yeah, and so that made them both really intriguing to study, but also, as it turned out, incredibly important to understand this new and incredibly devastating illness.
Absolutely. And that's what I find so fascinating about her story is that this pre-existing, you know, her background in retrovirology was so crucial. She wasn't just reacting to this new threat, you know. She had this foundational understanding of the very type of virus that would end up being responsible.
Exactly.
And it really highlights a point about scientific progress that often these huge breakthroughs that address immediate crises are built upon years of fundamental, you know, curiosity-driven research.
Exactly. And then came that pivotal year, 1983, and reading about it, it's like a detective story.
It is.
Barré-Sinoussi and her team, they make this monumental breakthrough, identifying a retrovirus as the cause of AIDS. And this virus, later named HIV, finally gave a name to this invisible enemy, right?
Right.
And it's described in one of the sources as like finally reaching the summit of this impossible mountain, offering this vista of understanding where before there was just this terrifying fog.
It's a great analogy. I mean, the identification of HIV was a huge scientific triumph, no doubt.
Yeah.
But what came next wasn't exactly a straightforward victory lap.
Yeah.
You know, instead of this universal acceptance, the discovery ignited this period of intense scientific debate and even some pretty fierce controversy at times.
Wow.
There were these competing claims, challenges to the methodology, even disputes over who deserved credit.
Yeah.
One source we looked at described it as a real maelstrom of disputes and accusations.
Wow. It's hard to imagine making such a profound discovery, one with such huge implications for global health, only to then have it met with, you know, skepticism, even hostility from your own community.
Yeah, from your own peers.
Yeah, and the sources really highlight Barré-Sinoussi's resilience during this tumultuous time.
Right.
Instead of getting caught up in what one source calls the vortex of personal attacks.
Right.
She kept her focus laser sharp on the patients, on the need to figure out this disease and that kind of dedication in the face of, you know, such intense professional pressure.
It's incredible.
It's really inspiring.
And it speaks volumes about her commitment to the scientific process as a whole.
Yeah.
What's really significant is that her work didn't stay confined to the laboratory.
Oh, right.
Identifying HIV was just that first step.
Yeah.
And her research and her tireless advocacy, they became this bedrock for understanding the disease and developing strategies for prevention and treatment globally.
Globally.
I mean, terms like champion and warrior.
Oh, yeah.
They're not exaggerations when you think about her decades-long fight against this epidemic.
And that relentless dedication, it eventually got the highest form of scientific recognition.
That's right.
In 2008, Françoise Barré-Sinoussi received the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine.
Wow.
For her fundamental role in discovering HIV.
That's amazing.
And that moment must have felt like a validation not only for her efforts, but for the whole field of HIV/AIDS research.
Absolutely. And the Nobel Prize definitely amplified her voice on the world stage.
Right.
And she didn't shy away from using that platform to advocate for evidence-based public health policies.
Yeah.
There's one particularly notable instance we found in our sources.
Right.
It was her direct and very principled challenge to Pope Benedict XVI's statements about condoms and AIDS.
Wow, that must have taken so much courage.
It did.
To directly counter misinformation, especially coming from a figure with so much influence.
Absolutely.
And the sources really portray her as this powerful bulwark against misinformation.
Yes.
And they emphasize the responsibility that scientists have, in making sure that public health decisions are based on evidence,
right,
not ideology.
Exactly. And it raises a really important point about the role of scientists in public discourse.
Yeah.
Discovering scientific truths is one thing, but actually communicating those truths, especially when they clash with beliefs or societal norms,
right,
that's a whole other challenge.
Yeah.
And Barré-Sinoussi's actions highlight just how necessary it is for scientists to be part of these difficult conversations.
Absolutely. And as we look at Françoise Barré-Sinoussi's legacy today in 2025, her impact is still so strong.
It is.
And her story, as our sources emphasize, it's a powerful testament to the power of perseverance.
Right, in the face of these huge scientific and societal obstacles. And it makes you think about your own life, What are those seemingly impossible challenges, your own personal HIVs that you might be facing?
And if we connect that to the bigger picture,
yeah,
Barré-Sinoussi's journey really underscores the fact that truly meaningful progress often requires not just intellectual brilliance,
right,
but also this unwavering commitment to a cause.
Yeah.
Even when you're facing these incredible headwinds.
Yeah.
Her life's work is a strong reminder that individual dedication can have huge global consequences.
It really can. And our sources end by encouraging us to think about what our first step might be in tackling those seemingly impossible problems.
Right.
Whether it's learning more, offering support, speaking out for what we believe is right. Barré-Sinoussi's example encourages us to take that initial leap.
What's really compelling is how universal her story is.
Yeah.
Her focus was on this one specific virus.
Yeah. But the principles of rigorous inquiry, unwavering dedication, and the courage to stand by scientific findings.
Right.
Those are lessons that apply across so many fields and to our own personal lives.
So to sum it all up, Françoise Barré-Sinoussi's deep dive into the mysteries of this terrifying new disease.
Right.
It didn't just lead to this Nobel Prize-winning discovery, but it also established her as this powerful voice for scientific truth and a symbol of resilience in the face of huge global health challenges.
And that leads us to a final thought for you to consider.
Okay.
Thinking about Françoise Barré-Sinoussi's incredible commitment amidst these huge scientific and societal hurdles.
Yeah.
What seemingly impossible problem in our world today deserves that same level of dedication?
Right.
And what small but significant action might you be inspired to take towards its resolution?
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for listening.